Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. My name is Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that is our TACoS Tuesday show, where it's actually a recorded live. We're doing this live. Those of you here watching this on Tuesday, we are live right now, and we're going to be getting to all of your questions that you're going to have about um, advertising, about PPC, whatever you might want to ask about on that topic. And so we're as always, we have different guests that we invite on, expert guests, and this will be her first time on the show. We're going to go ahead and invite up Anne from Packview. Anne, you notice my swag? I've got like this unique hat that I think we got at that one offsite. I've got the old school Packview.
Yeah, you're all set over there.
Love it, love it. So, this is your first time on the show, so let's just get some background on you first. Like, I know a little bit, but even I don't know too much, and probably what I do know, I forgot already. So, where are you at right now, first of all, in the world?
I'm actually based in Austin, Texas. We have a very small but mighty team here in Texas, so we're fully dispersed all over the country, and I'm here in the South.
I would never be able to live within 20 miles of Terry Black's there because I would be even larger than I am already if that was the case. So yeah,
That's a fair point.
Austin's a dangerous place for me with all the amazing barbecue and good stuff out there.
We do have good
How long?
food.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say we do have good food here, so you're right about that.
Yes, indeed. How long have you been at Packview?
I'm coming up on 5 years now, so for quite a while. My time at Packview has been varied in terms of what teams I've been on. I actually started on our strategic consulting team, where my main focus was actually growing and developing the omnichannel strategy for a lot of our enterprise customers. And then the last 2 or so years, I transitioned over to the product team, where I lead product evangelism on the enterprise side, which basically means I wear a lot of hats. I work with our cross-functional teams. I work with our top-tier customers, and I take that all back to, the technical teams to make sure we're developing the right roadmap for our customers to use.
Nice, kind of like my counterpart on the enterprise side there. Now, a lot of people, obviously, most everybody listening to this show knows about Helium 10 and what we have to offer and who can use Helium 10. And most people, I would say, know that, hey, Helium 10 and Packview are actually the same company. But some people have the questions out there like, how do I know if I'm looking for advertising solution or just a commerce solution in general? Should I be going for Helium 10? Should I be going to see what Packview has to offer? That's a very loaded question, but if we were to simplify it, what would you say to people asking about that?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's important to note that while Helium 10 and Packview are sister companies, we share a lot of the same tech. Underlying processes, for instance, your research tools were actually integrated into Packview, and some of Packview's advertising tools were integrated into Helium 10. So while there are some differences in terms of how the products are designed, at their core, it's the same company. I think the small nuances in how the product is designed will determine where a brand or company or individual should play. For instance, on the enterprise side, it's started with advertising at its core and then expanded to more retail and organic operations. Whereas obviously with Helium 10, it started as that research component, really focused on the individual product. And then some of those bigger advertising integrations were launched. So it's a matter of where you are in your journey on Amazon or on Walmart. If you are playing in multiple retail media networks, I would say that Packview is probably the place to go. We do have a bit more expansive in terms of retailer inventory available. Right now, we have over 90 different retailers available within the Packview product suite. But if you're really focused on some key marketplaces like Amazon and Walmart, Helium 10 is still a great option. So I think it's a matter of asking yourself the right questions in terms of what are your goals. And we do have folks who use both. So it's not an either or. You don't have to pick and choose. If you'd like to try both, I think it's definitely an option.
Cool. Now, I see people are putting questions in the chat, and we're going to get to those. So keep putting your questions about advertising in the chat, and we'll start putting them up on the screen. 2024 was probably the year of innovation on Amazon's side, as far as all the new releases and things from AMC to expanded sponsored TV to different metrics that never had been shown before, and just so many things. And too many to remember here, but if you were to pick two of the most noteworthy additions to Amazon advertising that you think will affect, sellers of all levels, or that they should be using, where it's like, hey guys, you might not even understand the power of what you just have. Like, I never thought Amazon would ever make this available. Like, what would you say, like top one or top two things that you got excited about last year?
That's a tough question because, to your point, there were quite a few releases. I think the expansion of AMC to sponsored ads only accounts is a really huge unlock for folks who are maybe earlier in their advertising journey and haven't jumped into display, which can be kind of overwhelming. I think the value of AMC gets kind of lost in its complexity, but at its core, it just really allows you to understand your customer's full journey on Amazon. So as opposed to just seeing, the last engagement that led to a purchase, you can see every ad touch and organic placement that led to someone purchasing one of your products. Once you start being able to look at data with that level of granularity, it essentially allows you to completely optimize your customer journey. And that will have an impact beyond just ads. It will also impact your product journey, the organic placements, how you set up your PDPs, etc. So I think there are a number of use cases for sponsored ads only AMC, and Amazon, as kind of a subheader to that, has released a number of actionable ways you can use AMC, even if you don't have DSP audiences. One big one that was released at the end of the year was the ability to do bid modification based on AMC audience segments. So if you're maybe, again, earlier in your advertising journey and you don't have huge budgets, this is a way that you can actually make your audience targeting more relevant for search. So as opposed to just targeting everyone who's searching for a specific keyword, you can say I'm targeting everyone who searched for a specific keyword, but also falls within this specific audience segment. So for instance, they visited one of your PDPs in the past. So it allows you to just make the group that you're spending money on more relevant, which means that they're more likely to purchase down the road.
Awesome.
Another big announcement, this is technically still in beta, but I think it's really exciting, especially for folks who, again, maybe are earlier in their journey on Amazon ads, is Performance Plus. So essentially what this is it's like AI recommendations driven by Amazon, and they recommend how you should optimize your account. So while with PackView and Helium 10, we have tools that basically do this optimization for you, with automated rules and AI, they don't always give very specific recommendations. Those types of functions are just running in the back end. So this type of activation can actually help you understand like what choices you should be making, what automation you should be using, and how you should set it up. And so again, I think it's just another way that Amazon has released functionality that makes Amazon ads just less complex overall.
Yeah. And then, a big sign that I think everybody understands how advanced Amazon's ad technology is, the announcement at CES last week that, hey, even if you're you've got your own website, you're now going to be able to even use Amazon's technology to run your own advertising on your own website. And so this just shows the direction Amazon is going into. All right, let's start with the questions. The first one's actually looks like it's for me. Would you explain the difference between the Helium 10 suggested bid on the Amazon and the Amazon suggested bid? The former is always much lower. So first of all, like if you're asking how does Helium 10 come up with that? Well, we've got a lot of data points that we look at to see, hey, what wins a placement on page one, and we basically just have a proprietary formula that will show you that. Now, personally, this is just my personal thing, and then Anne can maybe chime in here too. I don't look at any suggested bids almost. To maybe get a rough idea, but I am not going off of Amazon suggested bid. I'm not even going off of Helium 10 suggested bid. And the reason is because of Helium 10. Because we have things like the keyword tracker, I don't have to guess or run some long test like, hey, what's going to get me top of search? I literally can start targeting a keyword, pick a bid, and then I can turn that keyword on boost in keyword tracker. And within 3-4 hours, I'll be able to see, hey, what placement did that get me? Oh, I'm at position 11 in sponsored towards the bottom of page one, top of page two. Maybe I should raise my bid a few cents and let's just see what happens. Wait a few more hours. So because of that, I personally just don't like going off of, like Amazon suggested. I find it's very off many times. What about you? Like, Anne, when you're getting somebody started, like maybe with a new product, they're launching a new product and you want to know what to set your initial targets at, Are you just going with the suggested bids, or how do you determine that?
Yeah, so I always recommend to take a look at any suggestion provided either by the retailer or by the tech stack that you're using. But to your point, I think Amazon's focus is always going to be on making sure that you have a pretty large gap in between you and the person underneath you in terms of that bid. So the suggested bid is probably going to be a bit higher than you actually need to spend. Helium 10 is also a bit more focused on organic. So while Amazon doesn't directly share the algorithm they use to calculate their suggested bid, and we don't obviously on our end either, we do factor in a number of organic positions into why you should bid a specific way. So a lot of the product information that's in Helium 10 actually allows us to have what I would say is potentially a more robust algorithm and consideration in terms of what you should be bidding. All in though, to your point, I think it's just a starting point. So the suggested bid kicks it off, right? You can use that to launch your keywords, but then there's a number of automation tools and research tools that we have that help you optimize from that point on. So even if you don't start at exactly the right position, over time, you will start to boost based on some of the automation we have available.
Kim says, asking a question here. I'm hearing podcasts, webinars, setting bids based on calculations to meet targeted profit goals is best. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a really complex thing to do. Profit is obviously harder to calculate when you're looking at advertising because typically the metrics that you're going to have at your disposal when you're setting ad bids are advertising specific metrics. So you're not considering total sales outside of the ad attributed sales. And you're also not seeing cost outside of ad cost. Meeting targeted profit goals can be done with the right tech stack, aka Helium 10 and PackView both have retail operations metrics available, but it is pretty complex. It also depends on how large your portfolio is. So if you have 1, 2, maybe 3 products that you're promoting and you have, a couple hundred keywords for each, you could probably have a more robust keyword-based strategy that ties back to your profit goals. If you have hundreds of products, that becomes more difficult. So instead of thinking of bids as the lever to reach your profit goals, think of your whole ad strategy as one lever to push towards those profit goals. It's all about growth, and then factor in things like cost and efficiency after you've implemented your ad strategy and measured over time.
I know this is a question that we can't really answer without knowing, looking at more details, but I think it's a general sentiment that especially newer sellers might have is when you're a newer product, you usually do have higher ACoS. I actually plan when I launch new products, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be making money in the first month or so because I got to get this exposure until I can build up reviews and build up some customer trust and things like that. But just, without having to know or without knowing what specifically might be befalling this particular seller, what are some just general thoughts about how when you're newer to the market, what's your timeline with getting ACoS down, and what are some just easy things, because another thing you have to be careful about is some of the rules that a mature campaign might have is like, hey, you know what, if I personally made some rule that's if I get 30 clicks and no sales, I need to negative match that. But you might not always want to do that in the beginning because you got to have a little bit more leeway due to your product being new. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we would need some more information. For instance, what category are you operating in? What are your competitors like? All of those have a pretty profound impact on how much money you have to spend right out the gate to get volume. But if you're talking about kind of in the early month or 2 period where you're trying to grow your product while still maintaining a level of efficiency, that can be difficult, but it's not impossible. I think first and foremost, keyword research, keyword research, keyword research. It's really easy to look at high volume keywords and say, I'm just going to add all of these in so that I get a lot of reach, but those are quite expensive. Because it's not the most relevant audience and they're typically pretty competitive. So if you look for long tail keywords that are still relevant to your product, that can be a good starting point so that you're still getting traffic, but you're paying a bit less for it because it's just not as broad reaching. Additionally, making sure that you implement automation basically from the get-go. As I said before, AI automation, it's great, but it takes a bit of time to regulate. So if you're trying to optimize towards an ACoS or a ROAS or some sort of efficiency goal, make sure that you set up automation with that in mind. A lot of the automation we have within Helium 10 also mirrors what we have on the PackView side, which means that you don't necessarily have to pick one goal when you're setting it up. You can say my goal is efficiency while still trying to find clicks or impressions or sales. So you don't necessarily have to sacrifice the volume for the efficiency. But to your point, I would say expect some inefficiencies in the first couple of months, especially growing new products, and just do your best to try to regulate within, whatever your budget is, and just make sure that your budget is really clear, and that you know what you're spending at what point, so that you don't go over and ultimately sacrifice potential volume that you could have in 3, 4, or 5 months when your product is a bit more established.
Excellent. Another good question by Josh. Is there a rule of thumb? How many different ad groups per ASIN is standard or best practice? I came to Helium 10 from a couple different PPC agencies, and I literally have 400 campaigns, and it's insanely overwhelming. What should I do? Should I archive the hundreds of campaigns that have no activity?
Yes. 400 campaign. I mean, it depends on how many products you have, right? If you have 400 products, that's normal, I guess, but 400 campaigns is quite a bit. Typically, how we recommend setting up ad campaigns is based on tactic, category, and if you have an individual product strategy product as well. So while you will have quite a few campaigns, you really only need about 4 per product or 4 per category. There's kind of 4 major targeting tactics that we recommend separating out in campaigns because those keywords perform differently. So you'll want to have different bids, budgets, etc. for each of them. But it's auto campaigns, which is just kind of the blanket free-for-all. Branded campaigns, which means someone searches for the brand that's associated with the product. Category, which just means people are searching for specific things. You sell shampoo and someone searches for shampoo. And then competitor. So if you've done, competitor research, you know what other ASINs are playing within your category that are high volume, you can actually target those. And if you have 4 for each product or category, you're pretty well set. So don't reinvent the wheel. Don't make it overly complicated. A lot of PPC agencies will because they have those experts on hand, but those people are also there to manage day to day. And if you're managing your own account yourself, I recommend consolidating and just sticking to 4 per product.
Of those 4 and of those types, are you having different match types in the same campaign? And if so, are they in the same ad group, or do you separate like phrase with exact in different ad groups?
So it really depends on the account. Back in the day when I was setting up these accounts, we would sometimes have different match types and different campaigns. But it's not always necessary because you can still optimize bids on the keyword level. So you can just make sure that your bid for phrase is lower than your bid for exact because you know that the exact match is going to have a smaller pool. And so you don't have to worry about costs running away with you. So again, if you're trying to keep it simple and you're managing it yourself, I'd probably just group them all together. But you definitely can have those split out as a separate either ad group or campaign. Typically, I try to separate things out on the campaign level as opposed to the ad group level, primarily because you can adjust budgets on the campaign level, which you can't do on the ad group level. So if you want to have a separate budget for phrase match versus exact match versus broad match, then you do need to have additional campaigns for each of those. But one really great thing about, the Helium 10 tool, as well as the PackView tool, is you can kind of copy paste settings. So if you set up those 4 kind of initial groups, and then you want to split it out by exact versus broad, you can literally copy over those 4 campaigns and just change the keywords to broad. So it's easier to set up and then, easier to manage as opposed to having to go through and do it campaign by campaign or ad group by ad group.
Makes sense. Meantime, guys, just to reset the room here, let us know in the chat where you guys are watching from. I neglected to do that. Usually I do some shout outs at the beginning, but you guys started off with some great questions. So I got distracted there, but yeah, I can see we have an international audience. I'm just curious where everybody's at. Let us know wherever you're watching from, where you're watching from. Question from Nitin here. It says, I'm a perfume seller. The sales have dropped drastically as December has gone by. What should my bidding stance be at this moment? The same campaigns are operating at an additional 50% ACoS, I'm assuming, compared to December, November.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you're in a highly seasonal category, so I think it's pretty relevant for you. We often see brands who do have highly seasonal products, chocolate, perfume, gift-focused products, or decor, will have bids that are 10x, or that are 10 times what they have in January and December. So I think it's definitely fair to say that you should reduce your bids and kind of focus on efficiencies at this moment, because I'm sure you saw a ton of volume in December, and you probably want to hold on to some of your budget for additional seasonal periods that come throughout the year. For example, Valentine's Day seems like another great opportunity for your specific products to see an increase organically in volume, and then you can also increase that with your advertising strategy. So for folks who are selling products in these highly seasonal categories, what we recommend doing is what we call a micro season calendar, where you map out what seasonal peaks are going to impact your product sales. And then you make sure that your budgets and your bids are highest in those moments. And then in the moments where you're maybe not going to see as much activity, you decrease your bids and you decrease your budgets to make sure that you still have some reserves for those bigger times of the year.
I'll start off with an answer to this just to say what I do, and then let's get Anne's input. How often should we optimize our ads? Once a week or every few days? Like if you're trying to change things every 2 hours, that would probably be a wrong answer. But other than that, like there's not, it's kind of like whatever floats your boat. If you're trying to do it every 6 months, that's also a wrong answer. Me, with Helium-10 Atomic, which I'm assuming you can do in PackView and many other tools out there. But what I do is I set my own custom rules, and then I have it check like once a week. And I'm looking personally back like at a 60-day window. That's just how sometimes I'll look at different windows, but I'm like, hey, look at a 60-day window once a week, and here's what I want you to be looking for. Me telling Atomic, hey, be looking for this kind of thing and give me suggestions based on this. And then once a week I'll go in there and I have personally maybe about not too much, compared to others, but like 150, 200 campaigns I manage across 3 different accounts of mine. And I can usually knock out, optimizing, quote unquote, these campaigns in maybe 5 or 10 minutes due to all of the things I programmed into Atomic, which does most of the heavy lifting. And it's just a matter of me deciding, do I want to implement the suggestions or not? Do you have a rule of thumb, Anne, for you as far as like, hey, what's a good cadence for, looking in to campaigns?
This sounds like a cop-out answer. I feel like I've used it a lot, but it really depends on what your goals are, what category you're in, what your budgets are. I would say that if you have good tech, Atomic, AI ads, PackView, most of the optimization should be done in the background without you having to manually interfere. You can set up, for instance, rules in the PackView product, which says when this specific performance thing happens, for instance, my spend gets too high or my traffic gets too low, change my bid for me. You don't have to go in and do it. It's going to do it in the background. So in those cases, I would say check in once or twice a week. Make sure that things are moving in the right direction. You can make some manual tweaks to budgets or bids if you see an opportunity to do so. But most of the legwork is done in the background. If you're fully managing manually, no tech, no automation, no AI, I'd probably say you want to check in at least once a day, which sounds overwhelming. But if you don't, you have potential errors that could occur. For instance, your campaigns could run out of budget, and it could be a key campaign for a key product, and you're not showing any ads. That gives your competitors an opportunity to take some share away from you, which means that you might not get as many sales that week. Or your bids or keywords could be optimized incorrectly. You could be missing the opportunity to target a really high value keyword that just started kind of growing in popularity because you don't have keyword harvesting tactics active. So biggest recommendation is to make sure you choose a tech stack that can do a lot of this for you, and then check in once or twice a week. If you don't have that tech support, make sure you're checking in once a day. It doesn't have to be the weekends, maybe 5 times a week then. Just check in the mornings, make sure that your bids, your budgets, everything looks okay, and make some manual tweaks as you go.
All right, let's see some shout outs here for some of the people around the world. Joshua Clark, who asked a question. He's in Oceanside, California. That's where I grew up. I went to El Camino High School. And Josh, right after this, I'm going to meet up with some Helium-10 users, some Amazon sellers in San Marcos. So if you're about 10 minutes away from Curry and Moore in San Marcos, anybody out here in North County, 12:30 Helium-10 meetup at Curry and Moore. Josh, hope to see you there. Somebody who won't be able to go would be Number One Programming. He's in Dubai. So he's a little bit far away. We've got Pakistan in the house. We've got Sammy watching from Australia at 6 a.m.
Wow.
Elisa in Norway. Norway's got to be like evening time. We've got Minnesota in the house. Juan Carlos from Spain. Let's see, another one from Spain. Well, we got a big community from Spain watching today. That's great. Pierre from Miami, how's it going? Rolly from Canada. We've got Anton from Chile. One of your neighbors here from Austin. Jason is here in Austin. Maybe you guys can go to Terry Black's after this.
I'll see you there.
Belgium. By the way, anybody who is in Europe, all right. I saw a bunch from Spain. We got Belgium in the house. I'll be in Europe next week, starting on Friday. We have a big conference we're doing in Berlin, Germany on Saturday. Anybody who's interested to go, h10.me/Germany, h10.me/Germany. We've got William from the Philippines, India. I told you we'd have an international audience here. Great. All right. So let me get back to the questions here. Let's see. Brandon says, hey, Anne, when you do set up your clients for campaigns, how are you getting outside traffic into Amazon? Are you running like a blog on Shopify that runs Google ads into Amazon, or what kind of outside traffic do you focus on?
Well, the real answer is anytime we're trying to connect outside of the Amazon ecosystem, most of the enterprise customers use display. So that's Amazon DSP, not sponsored display, which obviously has some similarities. The main reason for that is because a lot of the outside traffic or the inventory for placements outside of Amazon is going to be more visual. And also it's not keyword focused, maybe with the exception of Google, which is search-based. A lot of it is going to be more so about the person that's moving around the internet and not specifically a keyword that they just searched for. So I would say, though, it's sometimes overwhelming for folks because programmatic advertising is a whole new ballgame. Display can be a really great way to grow your audience on Amazon with folks who are, relevant in other places. It also allows for tracking across various websites, whether that's, your Meta account, your Google account, your D2C website, whichever. That being said, I would say that on Amazon traffic is pretty vast. There are a number of folks within categories or cross categories. So before I would say you move to trying to pull converters from off Amazon, I would make sure you're totally tapped out on the Amazon market. One strategy that we use if we feel like a specific category feels stagnant, like we're not seeing a lot of growth, is we'll start pulling adjacent category targets, which means, tying back to the example I gave earlier, I sell shampoo. I'm going to start looking for people who are looking for conditioner, soap, other bath and beauty products. That allows you to grow your audience on Amazon with the tools that are available within sponsored ads and search without having to get overly complex about pulling them from Google or whichever.
Does PackView auto-enroll you on other retail platforms, or do you have to enroll individually and then activate that feature on PackView?
So it doesn't auto-enroll you. Most of the other retail platforms require authorization by the brand or seller. So we let you pick and choose which retailers you pull into PackView, and we authorize by retailer. But we do have connectivity between all of the retailers within our ecosystem. So while you do have to do kind of a first step, which is authorizing by retailer, then we actually pull in cross-retailer reporting, cross-retailer functionality so that you can see the full picture and not just that individual retailer or marketplace.
How do you forecast ACoS for a new product launch?
That's difficult. A lot of it is either going to be based on other products within your portfolio in that same category or some guesswork, right? We have research tools that allow you to see the volume that can show you things like bids. And so you can back into based on the volume, based on the bids, and based on estimated click-through rate, which can either come from other products or other research tools, what your spend will be. And then if you have also estimated conversion rate, that's when you can start factoring in what my sales would be and calculate ACoS. There's a lot of guesswork in the kind of initial stages of setting up an account, but that guesswork is much more accurate and supported with tools like PackView and Helium 10 because of the research tools that we have at our disposal and just the amount of data that we've saved for so many products. You're able to go through, look at comparable ASINs, look at comparable SKUs, and make calculated guesses.
This is a philosophical question we always get, and so I always like asking it when somebody does. Hey, I'm already ranking high organically. my profitability is already tough. Like, am I wasting money by also doubling down and still advertising for that same keyword, even though I'm already ranked high organically? What is your take on that?
I think you're losing money if you're not spending money on advertising, even if you're ranked high organically. The reason for that is the ad placements fall above the organic placements, and most people, for lack of a better term, are kind of lazy. When you're searching, you click on that first product. Not everyone notices that it's sponsored, and so if that's your competitor who's not in the top 50 or who is in the top 50, they're getting more clicks than you. They're getting more conversion opportunities. So if you have the available budget for hero products or new products alike, I would absolutely recommend advertising, especially in sponsored product. Now, there are some additional placement, for instance, like sponsored brand, that can add a lot of value to your strategy, but don't necessarily always need to feature products that are already doing well organically. Those types of adjacent or additional ad types, I would say, can be used more so as a growth strategy. And if you already have a really solid product, you don't necessarily always have to use those. So there are certain types of advertising on Amazon that you don't need if you're doing well organically, but like the core sponsored product, I think you're missing out if you don't have your products featured there.
I agree. And we talk about things like share of voice. Like if that's something that's important to you, like me, I just want all the real estate I can get, reasonable, in a reasonable manner, because it just gives me more at bats. And for every placement I have, that's one less chance that they have to look at a competitor. But obviously within reason. Like, don't be spending so much that you're not profitable anymore. Kim asks, what do you feel is a good ratio of ad to organic sales? I've heard 25%, she said, is good. I've heard 30% is good. Do you have a rule of thumb you shoot for? Me personally, I just want to be profitable. I'm not looking to say, oh, I need to get at a certain, I need 60% coming from organic or something. What about you? Do you actually have a target for organic versus PPC sales?
I'm doing the cop-out answer again, but it depends, right? It depends on your goals, the product, how long it's been in the market. We got a question earlier about a completely new product. In those first couple of months, it's not unheard of for 90% of your sales to be driven by ads because you're building the growth, the volume, the knowledge around that individual ASIN. I would say that profitability is what you should be looking at, what your ultimate goals are. And another thing is making sure that when you're spending on ads, that you're not just impacting advertising. Advertising is a means to an end. It shouldn't be the only way that you're driving sales. So over time, even if you start with your, all of your sales being driven 80% by ads, you want to make sure that that ratio becomes more favorable and that you're seeing both advertising sales and then eventually organic sales go up. Because if you're not seeing that, you're paying one for every sale, and that's not a scalable or sustainable strategy.
All right, here's a question for me. Maynard says, to help improve conversions and PPC results, we're focusing on optimizing our existing Amazon product listings. What's the best tool to optimize these listings? So there's two aspects of it. One is the SEO and how set up you are for SEO. So definitely go into Listing Builder, hit the Learn Listing Builder or Listing Builder Train or some button like that it's called. And you'll see a lot of videos there about how to use that, where you can bring in competitors and really understand what is the best keywords for the market and how you're optimized. But the second aspect is your visual, and so some things like, hey, best thing for click-through rate, hey, how is your title optimized for search? How is your main image? And inside of Helium 10, we've got this split testing tool, which is kind of like an audience split testing tool. It's called Helium 10 Audience. It uses a service called PickFu. I highly recommend that because I've used that so many times where I'm like, oh, I've got the best main image here. I have a couple other, main images that I don't think are that great. Let me just, test my target market. When I say target market, I can go like, hey, if my target market's 30 to 39-year-old females, Prime members, like I can actually target that market and ask them a question and say, hey, which picture do you like the best and why? And a lot of times, like half the time, actually, what I thought was the best is like not accurate. And now I switch gears based on that. Of course, you could do that in live on Amazon as well with their split testing. But I like to do, I get answers within 30 minutes sometimes there, and I'm not split testing a live listing. Especially if I'm not even ready to launch yet, I don't have to wait. I can actually do this split testing. So anybody who has not looked into it, you definitely look up Helium 10 Audience to take a look at that. Riyadh ask another common question here that some have is, hey, if I'm advertising the same keyword in an exact phrase and broad match, am I competing with yourself? I assume only one of the campaigns will get the impression. I know the answer to this, but Anne, go ahead and let people know about this.
So you're not competing with yourself, because when it's an individual product, while you may be bidding on multiple keywords that overlap, that product can only show once. So you're not competing with yourself. You're just opening up more opportunities for your product to show. And typically when you're looking at, for instance, broad versus exact, what you're actually showing up for, what auctions you're winning are going to be vastly different, because you can bid more on exact. So the exact is normally going to be the reason that you show up for that specific keyword. And then as you go to phrase or broad, you maybe bid a little less, and they're going to be the reason you show up in those kind of phrase match, broad match auctions. So you're not competing with yourself as long as it's just one product. Now, if you have two comparable products in the same category and you're bidding on the exact same keywords, you might be competing with yourself a bit. But one thing to note is that prevents your competition from competing with you. So it means that you can show up in more placements for those high value terms. And so a little bit of self-competition or self-cannibalization is okay, as we like to call it. But in general, one product, it's fine to bid on both the exact phrase and broad match versions of a keyword.
Anton says, hey, some keywords don't appear in Cerebra as in no search volume, but I do a sponsored product campaigns. I have impressions, clicks, and sales for it. Why does it happen? So this is a good question, because there's some misconceptions about impressions, and Anne can further clarify this as well. But when you see impressions, it doesn't even match like what you see in Amazon as far as their own like metrics, as far as search volume and things like that. Because like, let's say somebody searches a keyword maybe only one time a month. And so obviously if it's only one, it's not going to show up in Helium 10 as search volume. But somebody clicked on that ad, or that ad is actually going to follow that customer around. It'll start showing up on product pages. It might show up on other search terms that you weren't even targeting. Every single time, that one first search might trigger something that could have 15, 20 impressions later on, because now that ad is following that customer around Amazon. So you can't like take the impressions from advertising and compare it to like even Amazon, search volume metrics, because when we say search volume, it's that exact keyword. The other thing is that, plural versions of that also count, for that. So like if I search for coffin shelf has its own search volume. That means the people who search that exact term. But when you're talking about impressions, look at your search term. You might have targeted it exactly coffin shelf, but you could be showing up for coffin shelves, coffins, shelf, coffins, shelves, and like all these other things are counting impressions even on the search. And then plus those two, or all these variations are also leading to other impressions because that ad is following you around. Is there something I said wrong, or some other clarification you have on that? And
yeah, for certain ad types, absolutely. There's retargeting capabilities. So you search for something, you engage with an ad, and it will follow you around. I think for core like sponsored product impressions, the key piece is how exact is the search term. So for example, if you looked for the the phrase like shampoo for women, which is a very high volume keyword, so that's not a good example. But someone who searches for shampoo, products for women, a number of different variations can actually match to that specific search term. So it's never one, or it's not always one for one. This is what I searched for, and this is the impression that I'm giving. So probably a lot of the impressions that you're getting are coming from terms that overlap with that specific search term, but that search term in and of itself has very limited or no search volume as an individual phrase. So a lot of it is the logic behind the phrase exact match, the broad match, etc.
Gansafar wants a final answer, but we're not, there's no final answer for this. The answer is going to be, it depends also, but there's always this debate. Hey, should I just have one keyword per campaign versus multiple? What are your thoughts aside from just, it depends, which we all know, I think it depends.
In this case, actually, I can't really see many situations where you'd want one keyword per campaign.
Okay. That's my philosophy too, but I was just trying to be politically like neutral there.
I appreciate that. Switzerland. Yeah, that is not a tactic I would recommend. One, because it's just going to complicate your life. We talked to someone earlier who had 400 campaigns. If you can only have 400 keywords, or you have to increase a campaign every time, that's just going to be pretty difficult and impossible to manage. So my recommendation, as opposed to having one keyword per campaign, is to have one product per campaign with multiple keywords based on the targeting tactic, or some other segmentation, as we talked about earlier. This also allows you to grow without, having infinite amount of campaigns. And I think the bid mechanism on the keyword level allows you to prevent too much budget to go to, one keyword that's maybe not high performing. And then the budget allows you to optimize on the product level. So really, I can't think of a one keyword per campaign situation unless you have one extremely important keyword that you want to make sure all of your budget is going towards. But I would only do that in a very rare scenario.
I can take this one from Kim. What's the best way to find newer keywords that are gaining recent search volume but may not be showing up yet in ads? So like, if you mean like might not be showing up in your auto campaigns, or I mean, obviously whatever is going to show up in ads is what you target in your targeting campaigns. But like, if you're just asking generally, hey, how do I find trending keywords in your niche? Then yeah, definitely be looking at Helium 10, and then I would be looking at some of the top competitors too. There's a feature in Insights Dashboard and Keyword Tracker inside of Helium 10 where we're going to pick up on search volume right away. There's no such thing as this brand new keyword has 8,000 searches in the last 2 weeks and Helium 10 doesn't know about it. It's going to come up within 1 week, even if something pops up. But we have this keyword harvesting. I bet you Anne doesn't even know about this. I'm not sure if she knows about this feature in Helium 10, where in our keyword tracker, you can say, hey, here's my competitor. I know they're top class and they're going to pick up on these trends, but you can actually say, hey, if there's a keyword that all of a sudden gets more than X search volume, whatever you determine, 300 or 400 or 1,000, and my competitor is showing up either in ads or in organically in the top 15, meaning that they might be getting sales from it, give me a heads up. So instead of you having to go search like every day or do some search or run Cerebro every week and see where your competitors are, just set it and forget it, where you can set an insight or an alert inside of Keyword Tracker, and you'll find out right away if there are new keywords that are happening in your niche. But then just in general, advertising is a great way. Amazon's algorithm is usually pretty good, with like broad campaigns and auto campaigns on picking up on trends that similar products to you are getting traction on. And if you've got an auto campaign with a decent budget, I would venture to say a lot of the times Amazon might start showing you on their own. Let's see. Henry says, do you have any recommendations for managing advertising for a large catalog of small ticket items that are less than $15 each, often with not that many direct competitors?
Not that many direct competitors is an interesting factor in there, because I would say if you have a large catalog of smaller products, I would group them based on similarities so that you don't have to have campaigns for each of them, and that you can kind of disperse the budget based on the highest performing product, as opposed to spending a lot of money for a product that has an ASP that's lower than $15. So I would still recommend that in your case. Not having many direct competitors, that might actually be the factor that you want to group your products by. So as opposed to looking at like attributes, instead look at, are they more competitive, and group them based on competitiveness. So for instance, if you have 1/3 of your catalog that maybe has some competitors, you group those together. 1/3 that has a lot of competitors, you group those together. And then 1/3 that are maybe less competitive, group those together, and spend more in the area where you have more competition, so that you're gaining that share with ads, versus spending in the area where you're organically doing well and you don't have a lot of competition. So you maybe don't need as much budget and with those products.
Joseph says, how do you determine which products would be best for display ads for traffic off of Amazon? We've got 300 products and don't know where to start.
That's a great question. I would say, what are your hero products? What are your hero ASINs? And what do you expect to make the most money with? That's step one. Typically, we recommend, if you're running both search and display, to start with your hero products and then any new launched products. Because one thing about display campaigns and off Amazon traffic is there's a lot of it. So if you have a new product and you're trying to get the word out about it, trying to get more engagement on that PDP, having off Amazon ads can really help with that. So really 2 camps. Hero products, they're going to drive a lot of sales. I want to make sure they're getting in front of people. And then, those new products that maybe need a little help in the interim. Everything in the middle, that's, obviously still important, but not as much of a priority for your goals for the year or the month or whatever. Those don't necessarily need display campaigns. You can just focus on ads on Amazon.
Bart from Poland says, "Hey, today on LinkedIn, I saw a guy who runs 20 catch-all campaigns, all of them working. What do you think about this type of strategy?"
If by catch-all you mean the targeting is extremely open or completely open, I think it's a good strategy to get new keywords, to understand what works and what doesn't. But I think in his case, he's probably spending more than he needs to. So if you have a lot of budget and you have a lot of time, catch-all campaigns can be great. It's a good way to get started if you don't know what keywords you want to use or what products you should be promoting, what placements you should be pushing. But in general, they're research tools. They're basically built-in research tools. It's not a type of campaign I would recommend running in perpetuity. And I would definitely not recommend running it if you have an efficiency goal, an ACoS goal, ROAS goal, whatever, and a lower budget, because you're going to spend through your money very quickly and you're not going to get a lot of relevant clicks and engagement. You might get a lot of clicks and engagement, but not all of those are going to convert.
About the Germany event, Nitin is asking, "Hey, should I go in Germany, or is it more favorable to English speakers?" Yeah, so the event in Germany, obviously I don't sprechen Deutsch, so my presentation is going to be in English. And then Kevin King will be there. His presentation will be in English. There might be one or two other English speakers on the 25th. If you want to go to an all English thing, the day before, we're doing a workshop there. That's all in English with Kevin King, myself, and somebody who's going to be talking about TikTok advertising, worldwide TikTok advertising. And if you want information on that, Nitin, go to h10.me/Berlin. All right. So there's two events in 2 days, one all in English and one mostly in German. But after that, I'm not sure when we'll be back in Europe. Next events will be in the US. Let's see. Pierre says, "How to avoid competitors from wasting our ads and increasing our ACoS. We were stable 30 to 35% ACoS for years. And now we see campaigns going up to like 80% and sales are slumping."
Yeah, that can be difficult if you have a vertical category or product that all of a sudden you see a spike in competition. It definitely will increase your ad spend and decrease your efficiency. I think the best way to combat that, if you don't have the budget to stay in the areas that you're currently playing in, is to find new keywords that are still relevant that maybe your competition isn't showing up on. One big way to do that is through long tail keyword targeting. But it's a matter of kind of testing and learning where they're currently showing up and where they're not. And those really highly relevant category campaigns, for example, category keyword targeting, that's where most people start when they launch a new product. So more than likely, that's the area. Those are the types of areas where they're driving up your costs. Another strategy that you could implement would be targeting their PDPs. So we've talked a lot about keyword targeting. You are able to actually target products. It's called product attribute targeting. So you can find their ASINs and start targeting them. It's kind of the opposite strategy. Do you fight or flight, right? The flight is going to find new keywords, new categories to play in. The fight is to start targeting their PDPs and essentially driving their cost up so they have less cost in those category areas to spend.
Hamza says, "I'm currently #1 ranked for one of my keywords. Now, whether I run PPC ads or not," he says, "my sales remain largely unchanged, only a slight variation. Given this, I'm questioning whether it's worth continuing to run ads." This is similar to the other question, but a little bit more specifics here. "My break-even ACoS is 33%. The ACoS for the specific campaign is approximately 48%, making it less cost-effective. What's your take on this situation? Should I continue advertising for this keyword?"
Probably not. If you have one keyword where you're doing extremely well organically, take the money you're spending on that keyword and find broader categories, broader keywords, longer tail keywords to start targeting. Because what you will see is that you're now using that budget to get new customers as opposed to using that budget to show up where you're already doing a good job. So there's certain keywords that, like we say hero products, we say there's hero keywords. If you don't have a lot of competition, you don't necessarily have to defend that keyword with ads. If you do have a highly competitive category, pulling away from that keyword with ads could cause an organic decline over time. So if you do decide to shift that budget to longer tail keywords or adjacent keywords that allow you to get that new customer acquisition, just make sure you keep an eye on your organic performance and you flip it back on if you're starting to see that decline over time.
Another question here. if you have got brand, category, competitor, auto campaign, should you not be running Atomic AI advertising for each ASIN, or do you? So me personally, um, I don't run AI advertising and my regular set of campaigns at the same time. Our AI, I'm not sure how much you know about it, Anne, but I think ours is kind of built off of the PackView AI. Do you have clients who are running PackView's AI while also running simultaneously regular campaigns, and then why or why not?
Yeah, so we have multiple uses of AI, and I know a little bit about AI advertising because it does the setup for you. In many cases, it might actually create multiple campaigns that align with the brand, category, competitor, auto campaign segmentation because it's designed by folks who have been in the industry for a while, and that's a pretty standard best practice for a lot of people on the enterprise side. Additionally, often people on the enterprise side of the house will set up their campaigns and then activate AI. So they're segmenting their products, their keywords, their tactics out how they want to see it. And then they have AI do all the optimization, day parting, bid management, budget management, keyword harvesting, etc. So there are multiple ways that AI can be used. And I think in many cases, when AI advertising is set up, it will likely have some segmentation by tactic because it's designed to, suit industry standards and make sure that you're set up for success.
Thomas is just asking about the event I was talking about. Which day is better? I would say if you're a German speaker, Thomas, the 25th is better because there's going to be 500 people there, and it's all in German. The event on the 24th is a more like kind of just like a workshop, maybe only like 30 or 40 people. But the networking the next day is going to be really, really good. And so if you speak German, I would recommend that. Joseph asked how you learned about Amazon PPC, and what's the best place to learn lesser known advanced strategies? Well, lesser known advanced strategies, you're on there right now. TACoS Tuesday is a great place. Our blogs, podcasts, etc. But Andy, did you just like start working for a company and just dive headfirst in, or what was your background?
Yeah, so prior to working at PackView, I worked at an advertising agency here in Austin, Texas, back when we were all still in office. And I've been in the industry for well over a decade. So throughout that time, I actually started on traditional search. I think that's where a lot of people start, and that's like Google, Bing, etc. I started doing some social, and then this new thing called retail media ads started popping up primarily because of Amazon. And so a lot of the tactics and strategies that we were using for, channels like Google apply to Amazon PPC. There were just some nuances that we had to learn as we go. But after my time at that agency, I went to PackView, and I was able to work with a lot of really great enterprise brands who have a lot of budget, a lot of specific goals. And so in those ways, you really do get a lot of that kind of more nuanced experience. And that's when you start picking up on what works for specific categories, what specific keyword strategies, how you should conquest your competitors. And so a lot of it has been learning as I go. I will say both from PackView and from Helium 10, we have a company built of some of the largest and best experts in the space. And so I think, as you can tell by what we're doing today, we really hope to educate. So there's a lot of content, both from PackView and Helium 10, that can help teach the more nuanced strategies. And we try to create events, create forums for you to ask these questions live as well. So it's not just you reading a blog post or watching a video, but you can get your specific questions answered as well.
All right, guys, if anybody's interested in more information on how to use Helium 10 Atomic, just go to h10.me/atomic. This year now, even if you have the diamond plan, you've got Atomic. Atomic used to be an add-on where you had to have the diamond plan and you had to pay extra. So now if you guys have a Helium 10 diamond account, you've already got access to it. I highly recommend using it. We just launched a cool share of voice tool within Atomic last week to some members. It's going out to a wider number of members this month. So make sure to check that out. If people want to get more information about what you guys do at PackView, best place to go, Anne?
So packview.com is a great place to go. Sales at packview.com. Also, if you'd like, talk to your team at Helium 10. We do have some individual types of like test accounts that you could poke around in. We have a knowledge base that you could view, and we have a ton of training materials that we can send out. So we have a blog on packview.com. That's probably where I'd start.
Awesome. All All right, Anne, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge. You had me worried there at first. I was like, am I going to have to answer these questions? And I know my initials are BS, but man, this is going to be tough for me. If you, I was like, we need the expert in here. So, Anne, you definitely brought a lot of knowledge, and we appreciate that. Look forward to having you back on this show in the future. And thanks to all of you guys for asking such great questions. We will see you guys later. Bye bye now.